Today, we will be discussing one of the most iconic murder mysteries and severely alleged hauntings of all time. On November 13th, 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. would murder his parents and his four siblings in their beds with a rifle at 112 Ocean Avenue on Long Island. Ronnie would claim he was driven by supernatural forces. The following year, the Lutz family would move in, making horrifying claims of the supernatural and fleeing after inhabiting the house for just under a month. Finally, Ed and Lorraine Warren would investigate the home along with many other paranormal groups, claiming demonic and paranormal activity. So, is this place actually haunted, or is it all a hoax? This is the story of the Amityville Horror House.
You are listening to Perplexity.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Perplexity, a mystery podcast. Happy October. As always, I am your host, Kadra. If you're new to the show, hello and welcome. I tell tales every single week that have perplexed me. So if you love a good mystery that leaves you wanting more, don't worry, you're in the right place. And if you end up enjoying today's episode, I'd love if you continue to follow along. If you are a returning listener, hello, my friends. Welcome back. It is spooky season, and I'm so excited because I have my sister here today, everybody.
Hello.
It's been a while.
I know. It's been a very long time. I think the last time we were together was when I was there with you.
I was thinking about that, but we also did that listener show, didn't we?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So,
we
but
did.
It's been a long time though.
Yeah, we did. We've done like one since I was there with you last.
Yeah. You've only been on season 3 one time. So yeah, this is exciting to have you back for Halloween again.
I am so excited.
I am curious. And you don't have to give a lot of information, but I'm curious how much you know about this story because you picked it from the list that I gave you.
Well, I am a huge Ed and Lorraine Warren fan. I love the Conjuring movies. I know there's a lot of conspiracy around them, but I think that the work that they've done is extremely fascinating.
Okay, that's interesting. So this is going to be a fun episode because me and Carlisa have different opinions, it sounds like, on Ed and Lorraine Warren. Maybe Carlisa's mind will change a little bit. Maybe not. But nevertheless, I love the Conjuring movies and the way that they are portrayed in the movies. I actually have been rewatching the Conjuring movies. So I just watched the first and the second one. And the second one starts with them investigating this house. So they're great films. So we'll talk about them more at the end of this episode and just a couple things really quickly, and then we'll dive right in because we have a lot to get into. So I just wanted to let everybody know that I did 2 collabs recently with people who are friends of the show already. So go to Believing the Bizarre and check out their episode. I was on their Terrified Together series. And then go check out Drinking the Kool-Aid with Amanda and Cassidy. They have their new segment, Things Are Getting Weird, and it's so much fun. We talked about transplants and transplants gone wrong, and it was just a crazy episode. So go check that out as well. And thanks, Dad, for recommending this. He recommended Amityville a long time ago, so we're finally doing it.
Okay. I would not have guessed that. Interesting.
No, he was fascinated by this story. We were talking about it a little bit the other day on FaceTime, and then I told him I was going to do it, and he was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I do want to issue a trigger warning because if you couldn't tell from the beginning, there's a heavy true crime element to this. So big listener discretion there. And as usual, all the sources for today's episode will be down in the show notes. But I do want to let everybody know that there was a docuseries that I watched for this, and it's fairly recent. So if you guys want to go check that out, it's called Amityville: An Origin Story. You do have to pay for it. It's on Amazon Prime and Apple TV, but it's 4 episodes. They interview Chris, one of the sons of the Lutz family, and it's very well done. So go check that out if you like. And without further ado, let's get into the insane story of Amityville. Okay, so just a little bit about the house really quickly. And there's a bunch of pictures that I sent Carlisa that will also be on the Instagram and in the YouTube video. So Carlisa, if you scroll further down, you can see what the house looks like. I think they painted it white later, so that's why there's like two different colors, but that's all the same house.
Oh, I see polka dots. I see lots of polka dots.
Oh, yes, that's Ronnie's room.
Okay.
It's the 70s, so lots of bright retro colors.
Okay.
So the Amityville house is located in a very pretty and quiet neighborhood on Long Island in New York. It's generously sized, 4,000 square feet. It is 3 stories tall. It's on the water, so it's like right by a creek. There's a heated pool, marble flooring, a banister, balcony, full basement, garage, and a boathouse. So it's a very nice home. But there were some very tragic murders here on November 13th, around 3:15 a.m. in 1974. So the perpetrator was 23-year-old Robert DeFeo, who went by Ronnie and sometimes went by Butch. So he murdered his father, mother, and his 4 siblings. Ronald DeFeo Sr. was 43 at the time, the father. His wife, Louise DeFeo, was also 43. And Ronnie's 4 siblings were Dawn, Allison, Mark, and John. Dawn was the oldest. She was 18. Allison was 13. Mark was 12. And John was the youngest, just 9 years old. Strangely, the entire family was found dead face down in their beds. They were also on 2 separate floors. So I think, if I remember correctly, some of the kids were on the 2nd floor and the parents were like in the upper bedroom. So it was strange to police immediately that none of the kids, nobody had gotten up. There was no silencer found on the weapon either. So that's a big reason why people point to paranormal activity or something like very strange in this case that hasn't been cracked. Like, why were there no signs of anybody getting out of their beds? Why were they all found in the same position? The family dog was unharmed. And as far as like background with the DeFeos, they were very well known in the community. They were devoutly Catholic. From the outside looking in, it seemed like they were a good family unit, but there was a lot of tension going on inside the home. So, first of all, they had mob ties, apparently. Like, particularly the dad had ties to the mob.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty crazy to have, your entire family and have mob ties. So initially, this plays into the story because initially Ronnie told the police that the mob killed his family. But then he kept changing his story, and obviously it was suspect that everyone in the home had been murdered and he was the only one left alive. So at one point, because he kept changing his story, he claimed his sister Dawn was involved in the killings. But eventually he would confess, and his defense built an insanity case. The psychiatrist, Dr. Harold Zolan, for the prosecution, would maintain that Ronnie was insane. He was also a user of heroin and LSD, and he had antisocial personality disorder. But he was aware of his actions at the time of the crime. Like, if you look at how he confessed to police and everything, the fact that he dumped the gun, it doesn't point to insanity. It's like this organized crime.
Right, like that there was some sort of meaning behind it, and clearly he was smart enough to try and get rid of any evidence
exactly
that he might have left behind.
Yeah, there was forethought afterwards, and I did put the link in the pictures, Carlisa, in case you want to look further. There are a bunch of photos in the link in that Google Doc, including crime scene photos. That will also be in the show notes, but I'm not going to put that in the YouTube video because my video will probably get demonetized and taken down. And trigger warning if you do look at those photos. But what's interesting to me about them is that there is, in some of the pictures, you can see like a blanket pulled over the kids, or just to me, some signs of thought after and signs of remorse. And then the guns were found later hidden in a sewer. So that doesn't seem like insanity to me.
Right.
So ultimately, with the trial, Ronnie was found guilty on 6 counts of second-degree murder, and he was sentenced 25 years to life. But the motive for why he would have done something like this remains unclear. There's some theories. Like I said, there was a lot of tension going on in the home. Ronnie apparently had a very volatile relationship with his dad. There was apparently some abuse going on. When his parents were killed and before they knew that Ronnie had done it, he was talking to police and he pretty quickly asked them how he could get his parents' life insurance money. So that was a red flag.
World's dumbest criminal. Like, let's not murder our families and then ask about the life insurance money.
Right, like immediately.
Immediately after. That's insane.
Right. Yeah, and so he would have gotten like $200,000 from... like if he would have gotten the life insurance money. He didn't, but so, I mean, that's a significant amount of money, especially in the 70s. This was also not the first time that something like this had happened. So this is crazy. Ronnie actually had already tried to kill his father a year prior. He had held a gun to his dad's head, but it jammed. And apparently the reason that he did this is because his dad was hitting Louise, the mom.
Okay.
I don't know much else about that incident, but there's allegations of abuse. There was apparently a lot of turmoil in the home because Ronnie was kind of like the black sheep of the family also. He was using drugs, he was partying a lot, and it seemed like to him, his parents were more favorable of his siblings, so that could explain why he killed his siblings. There could have been some jealousy. So regarding the paranormal claims, obviously... it's strange that they were all found in the same position. When they looked at the scene forensically, it was like, no, like these bodies were not moved. They died this way. There were no drugs found in their system, even though Ronnie claimed to have drugged them. So that was strange. The neighbors didn't hear any gunshots, and that rifle would have been incredibly loud. So that's... it kind of plays into that urban legend of this place being haunted.
Were they shot in the back? I'm looking at the crime scene photos and I can't tell. Like, it looks like they were shot in the back almost.
Yeah, it seems like they were all shot in the back, but they were shot with like incredible precision. So yeah, another strange thing. And this also was at 3:13 a.m. So I would assume it's like very dark in the house.
Right.
So there's just some weird, unsettling aspects to it that don't really make sense. So the police would conclude that Ronnie's rifle had not been fitted with a sound suppressor. There was no evidence of sedatives. And Ronnie also claimed he had no memory of the event. He said he was compelled to murder his family because of voices in the house. So was he insane, deranged, possessed, or just murderous? Ronnie was convicted just a few years after The Exorcist came out, which was an incredibly successful movie. It grossed $193 million, and it scared the shit out of people. Soon after that, The Omen came out, which I saw last Halloween, and it still holds up. It's a pretty scary movie. So it was easier, I think, societally for communities to latch on to the idea that this could have been something paranormal. Ronnie DeFeo continued using drugs throughout his time in prison, and he died in March of 2021 when he was just 69 years old. His official cause of death has never been released to the public either.
Interesting. I wonder why that is.
I know. I thought that was kind of weird too. And again, just kind of adds to the mystery of this entire case.
Right, because if it was just like he had cancer or had a brain aneurysm or something, it doesn't really seem like it would be something that would stay hidden or private.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, like when serial killers have been killed, like Jeffrey Dahmer, he was attacked in prison and everybody quickly found out about that. I don't know why they would keep Ronnie's death a secret, but maybe there's a good reason. I don't know, but just seems a little weird.
Unless like he was killed by someone they were trying to protect, like maybe a prison guard or something.
True. Some people claim there is absolutely no way that Ronnie did all of this by himself. Documentary filmmaker Ryan Katzenbach is one of them. He believes there must have been a second shooter and that there is evidence to suggest this. Katzenbach has made a couple documentaries about the murders. The police continue to maintain, though, that there is no evidence to support this and that Ronnie acted alone. So now that we understand the events of November 13th, 1974, let's get into the claims of the Lutz family. And this is where all of the paranormal stuff begins. So just 1 year after these murders happened, the house went back up for sale and the Lutz family moved in. So at this point, it's 1975, and George and Kathy Lutz tour the house. They quickly fell in love with its charming aesthetic, and it was an incredible deal. They had it up for just $100,000.
Yeah, I bet they did.
From the moment that they toured the home, Kathy would claim she felt a strange presence. She felt like she was being watched. A family friend, Carol, also came along for the tour, and she claimed that she also felt the same strange feeling. There was also a lot of chilling reminders of the home's recent past. The bullet holes from the murders were still in the walls.
Okay, so didn't clean that up?
There was blood still in some of the rooms, and some of the original furniture was also still there.
Okay, so we didn't have the crime scene cleaners, I guess, like we do nowadays.
I'm just like, were realtors not staging the houses still back then?
Right.
Because I would be like, we need to get this cleaned up immediately. It's also just like disrespectful.
Yeah. Well, especially if I guess they clearly didn't have any problem selling the house. So, I mean, why not, I guess?
Yeah, that's true. Multiple people bought it after the Lutzes, because the Lutzes ended up only staying here for like 28 days.
Wow.
Because of what they experienced. So the realtor did disclose that there were murders here after the tour. And Kathy and Carol were, still charmed. Like, this is a really nice house, but they're feeling a little uneasy. There's a strange presence that we're feeling here. There's bullet holes. I don't know about this. But George, on the other hand, said he didn't feel anything, and he absolutely loved the house. So it seems like he kind of convinced them to all move in, and George also claims that he told his children what had happened there because they were going to be sleeping in these children's rooms. So, he's like, just so you know, there were some children that died here. You'd be sleeping in their rooms. Are you okay with that? And he claims that the children said they were fine with it.
If I put myself into their situation and their shoes when I'm around their age, which they look to be pretty young, I can't sit here and say that I would have been like, yeah, that's fine. Like, it's cool. No big deal. I can't fathom that.
Well, kids don't really understand death either. And we'll see more later, but I don't really know if George is the most reliable source to be getting information from.
Yeah, that's fair.
So the family quickly made an offer for $80,000, which was accepted, and they moved in. So the family was George and Kathy, and then they had 3 kids. Danny, who was the oldest, and he was 9. Chris was 7. And Melissa was the youngest. She often went by Missy, and she was just 5 years old. George was Kathy's second husband. She had recently gotten divorced from her abusive husband. And they met because Kathy was waitressing, and George would always sit in her section. George had also recently gotten his marriage annulled. He was an ex-Marine who had served in Vietnam. He was a writer, and he had a lot of money because his grandfather owned a surveying company, and George had just inherited it. Yeah. So one day, Kathy's waitressing, she's just scraping to get by, and she meets George, and she got a ride home from him on his Harley, and the rest was history. They fell in love and got married very quickly.
The classic 70s love story.
Yes. George loved riding motorcycles. That was one of his many passions. He was well integrated in a bikers group. He had a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And he also got Danny and Chris into this. But George was also into some interesting things. This wasn't unpopular because it's the spiritualist, the New Age movement, but he was very into transcendental meditation. And so he started getting Kathy into this also. And they also started having their kids do the meditations with them.
So how does that work?
My understanding is it's like a very deep meditation, kind of like yoga, but Kathy started having these claims that there were like strange things going on when they were doing this. They were doing it inside the house.
Okay.
But transcendental meditation in general, it's just a type of deep meditation. But in my opinion, it's a little weird to have your 9, 7, and 5-year-old doing that with you, you know?
Right. I agree.
Yeah. So the family had moved in a week before Christmas, which also kind of sucks. They start dealing with all this weird stuff right around like what's supposed to be the most wonderful time of the year. But it seemed like everything was going fine. Kathy and George seemed to have a good marriage, and the kids are excited. This is like the nicest house they've ever been in, you know? And so they're excited. They're exploring their new rooms. But pretty quickly, they start noticing some weird things are going on. So the middle child, Chris, noticed that there were strange things happening in the house. Like, first of all, on the second floor in the sewing room, which would end up being where a lot of the paranormal activity was, there was a strangely abundant accumulation of flies just buzzing everywhere and in all the windows.
Oh, absolutely not. Mm-mm.
He also kept noticing random cold spots throughout the house. George and Kathy also noticed cold spots and hot spots. There was also a strange foul odor that seemed to come and go throughout the house.
Okay. Not liking this.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it. Kathy later claimed during one of their meditation sessions that she felt something grab her hand. She described it as a woman's touch because she could feel a softness. She seemed so surprised by this and was telling George everything. He believed her. Like, she seemed clearly frightened by something. The other thing that happened is what I think is interesting is not only was the family experiencing things, but Kathy's friend Carol, the one who had felt the weird presence when they were touring the house, she also had a couple more things happen. So soon after the family moved in, because Carol's really cool with the family, she comes by because she's going to see the new house and help them unpack. So as soon as she got in the driveway, she immediately had to leave because seemingly out of nowhere, she became violently ill. She was very dizzy and nauseous. And the same thing happened a couple times after that. They would invite her over for a party, and she could never go inside. She kept getting sick.
Her spirit was like, absolutely not. You're not going in that house. It could sense it from down the street. You are staying your ass at home.
Exactly.
That's exactly what happened. She had that spirit inside of her.
Kathy continued to have encounters throughout the house. In the bedroom, the kitchen, the dining room. She just kept feeling this presence. The youngest daughter, Missy, also started having some very upsetting things happen, things that are straight out of a horror movie. She started telling her mom that there was an angel talking to her every night. And one particular day, when Kathy was walking past Missy's room, she heard Missy talking to someone. And when I say talking to someone, she means she heard Missy talking and heard another voice talking back.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
So, of course, Kathy opens the door, but of course there's nobody there. But Missy is facing the rocking chair that's in the corner of the room. And I'm just like, of course it's a rocking chair. Like, pick the creepiest piece of furniture ever. And it's a rocking chair. And Kathy would claim that the rocking chair was, yes, empty, but it was violently rocking back and forth.
And not just rocking, violently rocking.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Mm-mm.
I'm just picturing it like,
Well, it's like, even if you're sitting in a rocking chair, like if you're violently rocking, you're like pushing your legs up. I'm like, what's this ghost doing? Rocking violently like that.
So then Kathy's obviously like, "Hey, Missy, who you talking to?" And Missy's like, "My friend Jody." And she's like, "Oh, who's Jody?" And Jody, she said, was her friend that was telling her about the little boy who had been killed in her room. And then Missy started drawing. She drew a pig that was bleeding with hoof prints and said that this is Jody, the pig. And there's a picture of this drawing in the Google Doc.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Again, as a child, can you just imagine having a conversation even with a ghost, but it's like a bleeding pig? And the pig is rocking violently in the chair at the same time, by the way.
Yeah, and also, like, it seems like Missy's very calm about this whole situation from the way the story is told, at least, which I don't understand.
Yeah. Like, I guess that's okay. I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say.
And apparently not long after this, Kathy and George would claim that they noticed hoof prints out in the snow, because remember, it's Christmas time, with no logical explanation. And then they started noticing a demonic pig-like creature with glowing red eyes stalking them around the home.
Why is it always glowing red eyes, man? It's always glowing red eyes. And like, I'm sorry, it's not funny, but like, I'm imagining just like going out of your room and just like seeing a pig staring you down with its red eyes at the end of a hallway. Like, that's very interesting.
It's kind of like a goat in the sense that, like, this animal to be, like, it gives me a demonic vibe. I don't know. It just, it makes sense that it's a pig, I guess. But I'm like, where did the name Jody come from?
Right. I guess, I mean, she probably just came up with it.
Maybe, yeah. The activity in the home, of course, continued to amplify like it always does. There was one particular time that Danny, the oldest child, locked Chris in a closet one day on the 3rd floor, and Chris claims that while he was stuck in the closet, something grabbed the back of his leg. The longer the family was in the house, George's personality also seemed to change. He was showing signs of oppression. He stopped going into work, and he became obsessed with sitting around the fire and going to the boathouse. He was irritable, and he was getting angry at Kathy for no reason. The family was noticing banging noises and doors slamming every night. So finally, the family had had enough, and George asked a priest, Father Ray, to come out and look at the house. He had trained at the Vatican, which is common for, exorcisms and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So Father Ray blesses the house, and while he's doing this, he noticed there was a very, very cold spot in the sewing room. He also claimed that he heard a voice that said, "Get out."
Okay, yeah, I'm leaving. I'm on my way. All right. Sorry to bother you.
There's a very famous stand-up that Eddie Murphy did. And he's like reenacting this whole thing and does the Get Out whisper. That is where the movie got the name Get Out. Jordan Peele was inspired by that whole sketch. So fun fact with that.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. But Eddie Murphy's whole set was basically like, Black people would not be in the house for more than 2 seconds. As soon as we heard that whisper, we would have been out of there.
Well, and I know what sketch you're talking about because Dad's shown it to me before. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's so funny. It's a great sketch. They showed clips of it in the documentary that I watched also.
Okay.
So Father Ray also entered the bedroom where the 2 boys had been murdered, and he said he became so uncomfortable in there that he immediately needed to leave. So he couldn't even finish blessing the house.
Wow. What a horrible priest. Fire him. What?
Yeah, I would be pissed. And apparently the Lutzes, were so desperate that they had asked him later to come back, and he refused to come back.
Wow.
Into New Year's, Chris would claim that he was laying in his bedroom one day when he saw a shadowy figure floating in the hallway. George and Kathy went around the home and decided to bless it themselves. They went room to room saying prayers and opening the windows. While they were doing this, they claimed that a lot of the activity was amplifying. They started hearing a cacophony of voices, yelling at them to stop what they were doing. And George also claims that he levitated.
All right. Just while he was
Classic.
meditating, while he's sleeping. Like, I'm curious as to when this happened.
They made it sound like it was when they were blessing the house, but everything was very choppy. And the documentary, they were just like, this happened, this happened, this happened. And I read a bunch of articles too, but they also were kind of choppy. And I know that there's a book about this whole thing that I mention later, but sorry guys, I didn't have time to read a book too. So, you know, I'm sure there's more detail in there.
How could you?
So when they were done with blessing the house, they started closing all the windows, and it's a huge house. So they asked the kids to help them shut all the windows. While they were doing this, Danny's hand was crushed and injured because it seemed like the window mysteriously shut on its own and crushed his hand. And this is depicted in the movie in a pretty creepy and violent way. You can see his hand like bleeding and he's screaming, and his mom's like trying to lift the window and it won't lift.
Oh my gosh.
But then his hand healed on its own. Magic.
Okay. It's like reforming and like the blood is disappearing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Kathy would also see an older crone-like version of herself one night when she was looking in the mirror. There were even times that the family claimed that they would see green slime oozing from the walls.
And there will be green slime oozing from the walls. Wait a second. That wasn't one.
The walls will ooze green slime.
He's like, no, wait, they always do that.
Oh, wait. SpongeBob reference, guys.
Nosferatu.
So on January 14th, 1976, after the Lutz family had been living there for just 28 days, they would flee the Amityville Horror House, claiming that they had had one final night of extreme paranormal activity and they simply could not take any more. They said that during this particular night, the boys' beds were being lifted and slammed onto the floor. The doors were slamming and everybody was obviously very terrified. They concluded Ronnie DeFeo had been possessed when he committed the murders, and whatever had possessed him was tormenting the Lutz family now. George and Kathy were also given polygraphs, and they passed. Not that that means anything, but during this time, polygraphs were seen as very credible, so this may have helped gain the notoriety of the public. They did make a series of 26 cassette tapes where the Lutz family, like, they sit down, I think just George and Kathy, but they tell the whole story. And then they use these cassette tapes to write their best-selling book with the help of Jay Anson. And this was published in 1977. It's called The Amityville Horror. And I do eventually want to read this. Like I said, I didn't have time to do it this week. So then a movie was made and released in July 1979, ranking as the 8th highest grossing horror movie of all time with an adjusted gross of $310.3 million. The story also seemed to get bigger and bigger. There were claims of a red room in their home that was a gateway to hell. But then videos confirmed this was simply a small storage area with a red wall. And Carly said there's a picture of this at the very bottom of the Google Doc. One of their friends like went inside of it. It's literally just like this kind of area, like a little closet or under the stairs. But yeah, that's the gateway to hell. And I was also wondering if this is what inspired the Red Room in, it's either Hill House or
it's Insidious.
Is it Insidious? Okay. Mm-hmm. I thought there was one in Hill House too.
No, there is one in Hill House too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if that's what has inspired a lot of these films. The Red Room,
Definitely.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
George also claims that after they left the house and they moved to California, they continued to be haunted. So maybe whatever was there had latched on to George, particularly since his behavior had really changed. And Missy also continued to see Jody. There was this story, I can't remember who told it in the documentary, but apparently when they were on a plane flying to California, Missy said that she saw Jody on the wing of the airplane.
Now, okay, when pigs fly, I mean, stranger things have happened. That's so funny.
So before we get into theories, Carlisa, what do you think about these claims?
I mean, like, they're not too far-fetched, I feel like, especially just for the history of the house. It is crazy to me that, like, when you said it again, I know you had already said it, but that all of that had happened in only 28 days. Like, when you were describing it, I was, like, thinking, okay, this, like, oh, this happened over years.
Yeah.
But like, then I remembered, no, wait, it was less than a month that just all of this happened. So like something probably happened like every single day. So yeah, I mean, I don't think their claims are too crazy. Like I could definitely, the pig thing is a little strange, but like maybe it was just something that like clearly it wasn't like a clear pig, but it was some, like you saw, they saw the hooves and everything, like
yeah,
a shadowy pig figure type thing, you know?
They're also doing like a lot of deep meditation, and a lot of people who do deep meditation say that they'll have paranormal type of experiences. So I'm not necessarily saying that I'm not necessarily saying like this is totally a hoax. I think I'm open to the idea of at least some of this being true, but like the biggest, most amplified paranormal experience you can have, in my opinion, is levitation. Mm-hmm. And they're claiming that happened. So I'm like, okay, this is like, it is a lot to buy into, you know?
Right. Well, my thing also is like why I'm kind of inclined to believe them. They said they loved that house and they really wanted to be in it, and to only move out after 28 days, you know, like if you're just trying to do it for publicity, you're still having to move out of a house that you loved and was a steal apparently.
Yeah, and lose a lot of money.
So that's a lot of dedication if it was all just a hoax, you know?
Right. Yeah, totally. Theories. George and Kathy conjured something up and they were haunted. Chris and some of George's friends hint that George had a strong interest in the occult. Him and Kathy were doing these intense meditations, and Kathy and George claimed to the media that they had no prior knowledge of the occult, but a bunch of George's friends say otherwise, and this comes out in the documentary. George's son or stepson, Chris, claims that George had opened himself up to being possessed and that he was exploring very dark things. He kind of hints at black magic, is what I was gathering. This might also explain why subsequent owners never experienced any paranormal activity. However, the house was also exorcised after the Lutzes left, so you could also argue that's why no one experienced anything. George, after the haunting, continued to say he was haunted, he was hearing voices, so there's theories of mental illness, but there's also the big theory that, like, he was haunted, and so the house became haunted.
They finally finished the exorcism that the priest earlier didn't finish. And so once that was fully done, then it wasn't haunted anymore.
The other theory, the house was haunted because of the murders. The Lutzes were able to give details to police that were not released to the public. They told the police who was shot, where they were shot, what position they were found in. They claim Kathy and the kids slept on their stomachs the first week they were in the house also, which I thought was really creepy. And that's the position, you know, that all the DeFeo family was found in.
Right.
And they didn't normally sleep on their stomachs. They're like, this is so weird. Why do I keep waking up on my stomach? George also kept waking up at 3:15 in the morning, which is the same time that Ronnie killed everybody. There have been many paranormal investigations done at the house, and it was concluded that the home was haunted. The Lutzes also bought the house and left within a month, which, like Carlisa was saying, I mean, that would be, you know, pretty insane to buy a house, fake a haunting, and then lose all that money and leave within a month. You know, I feel like that is compelling. You can't really ignore that.
Right.
But nevertheless, the most popular theory is that this was a major hoax. Maybe the Lutzes were scam artists. Maybe they manipulated their kids into believing they were haunted. False memories were implanted. They wanted fame, which they did get. They did go on a world tour, and George was a writer. He knew how to make a good story. There were several claims that George made about the home that were proven to be false. For example, George claimed he had researched the home and said it was built on an old Native American burial ground, which is like the thing you hear literally in everything.
Always on a, oh my gosh, always on a burial ground.
Oh, what the heck? Sorry, 1 second. Did you see that?
Yeah, your light turned off. Ooh. Girl, you better bless your house.
It's literally never done that before.
Interesting.
You guys, no.
You're calling it a hoax, and now you're going to be haunted.
I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. There is no record that there was ever such a burial ground. It's also possible that the family was motivated financially, which, again, I don't think makes any sense because they bought a house and then, lost money. But I'm going to go over everything and y'all just think what you want. Make your own decisions. But maybe they were just trying to get out of their mortgage. They weren't doing well financially and they had put a lot of money into the house. And maybe they thought, if they claimed it was haunted, they could get out of it somehow, I guess is what this theory is saying. Even the Lutz's own family lawyer, and this is where I think the argument for the hoax really is stronger, the Lutz's family lawyer admitted that their claims were fake and profit motivated. He says in the documentary that the book was pure fiction that they concocted with their family lawyer, present. They had a dinner together. They had 3 bottles of wine. The pig demon was inspired by a neighborhood cat that often jumped on the DeFeo's window. The bleeding walls were inspired by spaghetti that had been splattered on the walls after Mr. DeFeo allegedly hit his wife in the kitchen while she was carrying the food. Flies were found in the house when the body of the older sister was discovered. From those flies, they created a supernatural scene in the movie and in the book, saying their home had been infested with flies. The way that the Lutzes moved after living in the house could also be seen as questionable and problematic. They were coached by William Weber, a defense attorney, on what they could say and do to further play up the haunting. In press conferences, they were incredibly ambiguous about what happened as well. They got a book deal, a movie, they went on a world tour, and it is estimated that they made about $300,000 off of the story after taxes and lawyers, because there were a lot of lawsuits as well. Not to mention, when they went on this world tour, they left their kids at a Catholic school at an orphanage. So Kathy and George are doing this world tour, and they dumped their kids at an orphanage for a year.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What? How old were they at this point? Do you know?
I mean, it was just a few years after the haunting, so they would have still been really little. Missy probably would have been 7 or 8. I think the oldest would have been 12, maybe.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that's where I really stopped rooting for the Lutzes at this point. I was yeah, no, screw these people. And when Chris is interviewed extensively in the documentary, he talks about how traumatizing this whole situation was for him and how it really messed up his life, largely because of how his parents handled it. Mm-hmm. Kathy claims this was her attempt to shelter the kids from what was going on, though. So there's, differing opinions. Chris also claims he was severely physically abused by his stepfather, George. George was also money hungry, and his parents sold the kids out for $275 a head to be depicted in the film. George also had no issue adding fictional elements to the story. Chris also found quaaludes in the paneling in his room, which I did not know what those were. I had to Google it. But these are drugs. And they believe that these belonged to Ronnie DeFeo. Chris found these and gave them to George. a little boy finds drugs, you're going to give them to your parents. But that is when George's behavior started to change.
He was partaking.
Maybe. And remember I said that Kathy, this was her second marriage. George had just gotten his marriage annulled. This was his second marriage. So the annulment documents from George's first marriage also revealed that his ex-wife had claimed he had abused her. And a doctor also diagnosed George with serious antisocial personality disorder. So perhaps the Lutzes are not the most reliable sources. Or maybe they really were haunted, but then they took advantage of it.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, clearly there's some truth to this, but just like all horror movies, even horror movies based on true stories, they still add things to it to make it more exciting. So it doesn't make the entire thing a lie. It's just elements added into it for entertainment.
Yeah. Two things could be true.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so our final chapter of today's episode is Ed and Lorraine Warren. Okay, so just in case, I'm going to quickly explain who these people are because not everybody knows who they are. When people watch the Conjuring movies, sometimes they think this is like all fiction, and Ed and Lorraine Warren were real people. Though their likeness in the movie is they're a hot couple. They're very like Americanized, super in love. It's very different than the real life version of Ed and Lorraine Warren.
So maybe when I said at the beginning I like them, maybe I like the movie versions.
Sure. Yeah. And here they are incredibly likable in the movies. So I would totally understand why someone would think that. On the surface, they are a very famous American paranormal investigation couple. And they really were like the OGs of ghost hunting. They founded the New England Society for Psychical Research, I think in like the 50s or something. And they've worked on very famous cases like Annabelle, the Enfield poltergeist, which I just watched The Conjuring 2 last night, which is all about the Enfield poltergeist.
Love that story.
It's very creepy.
Mm-hmm.
The Perrin family haunting, and many more. So Ed, his whole deal was he claimed he was a self-taught demonologist, and Lorraine professed to be clairvoyant and a light trance medium. So the Warrens investigate the house after the Lutzes flee it, and Lorraine would claim that after being in the house for just a few minutes, it was the closest to hell she had ever wanted to be. She felt an overwhelming sense of oppression and dread. She got sick, she got a headache, and she had to lay down. When she laid down, she said the Our Father prayer, and she claimed that she started seeing a series of figures standing in the hallway saying the prayer backward.
Oh, hate that.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
No.
She also concluded that the children in the Lutz family were sensitive, and that's why they had experienced a lot of this activity. She said the house was pure evil, and the team said the house should be exorcised. They also had no interest in ever going back. The investigation involved the media, and people went crazy, of course, over the story. And at this point, the Warrens were pretty well established and really trusted in the community, I think. One of the most famous pieces of supposed evidence from the house during the Warrens' investigation is known as the Ghost Boy photo. So, Carlisa, I put that picture in there.
Oh, I'm looking at it right now. It's been up on my screen, and I keep looking back at it because it's freaking me out.
So if you guys have never seen this photo and you're listening, just Google Ghost Boy photo Amityville, and it should pop right up. It's a black and white photo where you see a banister, and it looks like a little boy sticking his head out, and you see these glowing eyes, and to me, it clearly looks like a child.
Mm-hmm.
The photograph was captured using an automatic camera with infrared film set to shoot continuously overnight. The photo quickly became legendary, often cited as undeniable proof that spirits haunted the Amityville home. Some believers speculate that the boy was the ghost of one of the DeFeo children that was murdered in the house, and there's a picture of him. I think it's John. So you can kind of see his face and compare it to the ghost boy. But skeptics argue this was likely a member of the investigation team, a cameraman. I think his name was Paul, so I put a picture of him in there as well. It's not a great picture of him, but it's all I could find. He's wearing a plaid shirt, and he's younger looking. It's hard to tell in the ghost boy photo, but in other pictures of that I've seen online, it looks like the little boy is wearing a plaid shirt. So basically, skeptics claim the infrared light is what caused the glowing eyes effect. I think I've also read that Paul wore glasses, so that might have caused like a reflection.
Okay, but the hair is totally different than this guy.
Yeah, I know. Paul has like long, shaggy hair. To me, it does not look like him.
No, it looks like a little boy.
Yeah, Paul Bartz is the name of the photographer, and he was present at the investigation that night. George Lutz claims when his daughter Missy saw the photo, though, she said that was one of the spirits that she had seen before and talked to. But when it comes to the Warrens, true paranormal enthusiasts have a lot of opinions. Many people, including myself, say the Warrens were not good people. In fact, they were terrible people. They made a living off of people's pain. They scammed people. And many people have poked holes in the Warrens' claims over the years. But perhaps the worst of all is the story of Judith Penny. In 2017, Judith Penny would claim that she had a 40-year sexual relationship with Ed Warren and that Lorraine knew about it. When Judith met Ed, she was only 15 and Ed was 27. Ed got Judith pregnant, and Judith says that Lorraine persuaded her to get an abortion because the birth of a child would become a public scandal and, of course, ruin the Warrens' business and reputation. Judith also claimed that Ed was physically and emotionally abusive towards Lorraine, even knocking her unconscious at times. Ed Warren has also staged photos to prove the paranormal multiple times. He even once had Judith wrap herself in a white bedsheet and pose as a ghost while Ed took pictures of her.
That's like the classic, just throw a sheet on you and you're a ghost.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I could do a whole episode about the Warrens, but basically there have been people more in recent years, I would say like in the last probably 10 years, where they've really started looking at the Warrens' claims, their investigations, and poked a lot of holes in them. And a lot of people get frustrated now because it's like they kind of make paranormal investigators look bad because they're like the OGs. They built this, you know? So it's frustrating that like they're kind of the legacy. But it's hard because at the same time, like, it doesn't mean that these places or these objects, these things they looked at don't have a real story or weren't actually haunted, you know, but it does make it harder to believe it.
Did they both die?
Yeah, they're both dead. Ed, I think, died in like 2006 maybe. And Lorraine died, I want to say in like 2014, 2017, somewhere around there.
Okay.
Kind of going over the whole thing now. I think that Ronnie DeFeo had financial motive to murder his parents. And with his mental illness, his rage, his drug abuse, he also killed his siblings. I think that George Lutz was abusive and mentally ill and caused a lot of trauma in the house. So maybe the family was trying to cope with the trauma. Maybe they were manipulated into lying to the media to make George famous, to make him money. And some people say that the haunting at Amityville was a massive hoax, that a family capitalized on a tragic murder and took advantage of their children. And they say that that is the real horror. Whether the haunting is real or not, we do know that the murders were. The DeFeos were brutally and senselessly murdered in the home, and that is absolutely haunting. The children of the Lutzes were uprooted, they were thrown into the media, left in an orphanage, and Chris claims he has a lot of trauma, even to this day. He was talking about in the documentary how he would go to school, and the movie had come out, and all the kids were making fun of him. It's just, like, really sad, you know?
Was he the only sibling that was interviewed, or were the other two also interviewed?
They were not interviewed. It was just Chris.
Because I'm like, I want to hear from Missy. That's who I'm interested in hearing from, because clearly it seems like she had the most interactions with the paranormal side of things. So,
Yeah, from at least the sources I looked at, you really don't hear anything from Danny either, the oldest child.
Interesting.
So what do you think?
I definitely agree in terms of Ronnie. I think that he was clearly a drug abuser. I think he was financially motivated. It's really sad to me that he just killed his family in general, but like felt like he had to kill his siblings as well. I mean, they're just looking at their picture, it makes me so sad. Like, they were all so young. They are all precious. So it's really sad. But also, like you said, just the way that they died, the crime scene photos are extremely chilling. They were all only shot in the back one time.
The parents were each shot twice, while the kids were each shot once.
Okay.
He fired 8 shots total, because there were 6 of them.
And it was all proven that they were actually shot in the back and not anywhere else, that it didn't come out through their back. Like, because my thinking was maybe he killed them and then placed them that way. But if they were all shot in the back without having moved at all, that's just the part for me that's the most chilling. That, like you said, no one got up. No one, like, unless he was able to like overpower them and hold their faces down and chase them down and bring them back to the beds. It seems like a lot, you know?
They claim that they, looked at everything forensically and nobody had moved. Because you can tell if like someone's been shot in one position and then moved, because the blood spatter won't line up and stuff. Mm-hmm. They were all laying on their stomachs. And then the other thing that I think is weird about it is like a lot of them, like I said, there were 2 floors that they would have had to go on. So he's pretty spread out. It's giving a lot more time for people to wake up, move around, and a bunch of them shared a room. So, you have, I think like the 2 boys, for example, shared a room. So, you shoot and the other one doesn't move, doesn't wake up, and there were no drugs in any of their systems.
I do also, I believe that he didn't act alone. I think someone, if not multiple people, helped him. It's just the only thing that makes sense to me. And then like I said about the Lutz family, a lot of their stuff to me makes sense, but like you said, like the profiting part and them touring and them leaving their kids at the orphanage afterwards, like I think it started out real and then they kind of started eating it up and taking advantage of the situation.
And I know that there's like a lot of opinions on how someone should act when they go through something traumatic. So I don't want to like necessarily play into that, but I've got to say there's something about watching them in this documentary. And documentaries can be very biased, so maybe I've just been swayed that way. But to me, their behavior is just very odd. When you're like watching interviews with Kathy and George, they just, I don't know, they don't give me a good vibe. And that was before, like I felt like something was off before they even started explaining all the stuff that they had done afterwards. So I don't know. But the fact that 6 people, including 4 children, were murdered in this house, that is kind of the perfect landscape for a house to be haunted. There's a lot of trauma and tragedy there. So
right.
I still think that it's possible 2 things could be true, where there was some haunting there and the Lutzes just really played it up for some profit. Like maybe they got into the house, they realized they were in over their heads, like, oh, we can't actually afford this, we need to get out of this. And then they kind of made up this whole story. I don't know.
Still, that would be a lot to dedicate yourself to, just to get yourself out of a contract.
That's true. That's true. Well, that, everybody, is the story of the Amityville Horror House.
I'm glad that I picked this one. It was very interesting. And I had known of the story, but just not all of the details. So
yeah, it's a lot. And I would encourage everybody to go check out the documentary. It's 4 episodes. I binged them all in a day. They're not too long. And it's pretty well done. I think it came out in like 2023. And I was reading a lot of Reddit forums where people were like, there's a lot of new information in here. So, if you've been following this case for a while and you haven't watched the documentary, apparently there's a lot of new stuff in there. That's our first episode of October. And there is so much more spooky stuff coming this month. You guys have no idea. I do want to give you guys a little sneak peek. I'm not going to say too much, but there is a huge collaboration happening at the end of the month to ring in 150 episodes. You guys will be hearing some familiar and maybe some unfamiliar podcast voices that are going to be doing something with me. We have, I think, 9 different podcasts that are going to be involved with this collaboration. So you guys be sure to tune in for that last week of October. And then we're going to be doing spooky stuff all month. So I hope you guys enjoy all of that. And if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to let me know. If you're watching on YouTube, like this video, subscribe, drop a comment down below. I want to hear what y'all's theories are. What do you think about this case? And if you're listening on Spotify, you can also drop a comment. We can have a little chit chat. And if you have not done so yet, please leave a 5-star review wherever you are listening. That's how I get new listeners. That boosts me up the algorithms. It helps my podcast get put into playlists. So that's very much appreciated. My Apple podcast reviews have been looking a little lonely lately. So if you guys want to write a review, that would be awesome. And just keep telling people about the show. October is a great time to get some new listeners. So if you have some spooky people in your life, send them this episode. And if you guys want to support the show further, if you want early and ad-free episodes and tons of bonus content, join the Perplexed Society at patreon.com/Perplexity Mystery Podcast. Carlisa, thank you again. This was so fun.
Thank you. I always love being on here with you and hearing all the true crime and the stories that you tell me. I mean, it's just, true crime junkie here. So I'm always ready to hear and give my piece.
And this story had both the true crime and the spooky.
That's why I picked it.
Happy freaking October, everybody. My favorite month ever. I'm so excited. And yes, this was great. You all are amazing. I hope you have a great week. Please stay safe. And I will talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.